My ex came out as a lesbian right before our wedding date. She then lied to everyone, and now they have all abandoned me. My ex came out as a lesbian right before our wedding date. She then lied to everyone, and now they have all abandoned me. It had been 7 solid years with Dana, and from the get-go, she was open about her bisexuality. She'd shared stories about her past relationships with women before we became serious, and honestly, it never bothered me. It felt good, having that kind of honesty between us right from the start. Our relationship was never about fireworks or drama. It was more like a steady flame. Sure, we had our share of disagreements, like her habit of leaving dishes in the sink or my tendency to work late without giving a heads up. But we always found our way back, talking things through over late-night cups of coffee or early morning walks in the park near our apartment. Living together brought its own rhythm to our lives. We fell into comfortable routines, like how every Saturday morning we'd hit the local farmer's market, Dana beelining it to the fresh-cut flowers and me always picking up an extra loaf of sourdough from the baker. Evenings often found us in our little kitchen, Dana trying out new vegan recipes she'd found online while I played taste tester, or both of us curled up on the couch, binging on our latest Netflix obsession or deep diving into playlists of newly discovered bands. Our relationship might not have been the stuff of grand romances, but it was real. It was the small moments, the quiet understanding, the shared smiles over inside jokes that nobody else got. It was in these moments that I saw a future with her, a lifetime of these small perfect snapshots. And after 7 years, it felt right to take the next step, to ask her to marry me, to officially build a life together. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was one built on countless little moments that told me we were right for each other. After 7 years together, everything just seemed to line up perfectly. We were solid, emotionally and financially. We'd built a life together in our cozy 2-bedroom apartment surrounded by plants Dana loved to care for and framed photos capturing our best moments. It felt like everything we did naturally synced, whether it was saving up for a dream vacation or just planning our weekly meals. We were a team, and I never doubted we were on the same track. So, deciding to propose felt like the most natural next step. I wanted everything to be perfect, to reflect the thoughtfulness and depth of our relationship. It took weeks of planning, selecting the right ring, a simple yet elegant band that I knew would suit her understated style, choosing the perfect day, and orchestrating a scenario that was intimate and personal. I chose the little art gallery where we had our first date, under the guise of a new exhibit I knew she wouldn't want to miss. The gallery was small and intimate, filled with soft lighting and the gentle hum of other visitors that gave it a lively yet private feel. As we walked through, discussing various pieces, my heart pounded with a mix of nerves and excitement. At the center of the gallery, beneath her favorite painting, a vibrant abstract piece that always seemed to ignite her passion for art, I stopped. The moment felt suspended in time as I reached into my pocket, feeling the cool metal of the ring box. I got down on one knee, and her hands flew to her mouth in surprise. "Will you marry me?" The words felt both monumental and terrifyingly fragile in the air between us. Her eyes, always so full of warmth and understanding, widened as she hesitated. That moment of hesitation felt like an eternity, stretching out painfully long. I could see the conflict pass through her gaze, and my heart sank a little with uncertainty. But then, softly, almost a whisper, she said, "Yes." The glow of our engagement should have filled those next few days with joy and excited planning. In many ways, it did. Our friends were ecstatic, their faces lighting up as they tossed around ideas for the wedding. Beachside ceremonies, rustic barn venues, even a destination wedding in Italy. The enthusiasm was contagious, and it carried me along for a while. But something nagged at me, an undercurrent of unease that I just couldn't shake. It started with Dana's hesitation. That moment, as brief as it was, planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Why did she hesitate? I couldn't help but ask her later that evening as we lay in bed, the light from the street lamps casting soft shadows across our room. "I was nervous," she said simply, her voice steady but her body tense beside me. I wanted to believe her, to write it off as pre-proposal jitters, but it felt like there was something more she wasn't saying. I pushed a little, but she shut down the conversation with a kiss and whispered, "Let's just enjoy this moment." So, I let it go, not wanting to spoil the brief peace we had. But then there were her parents. We visited them the next day to share our news. I expected joy, or at least a warm embrace of congratulations. Instead, I was met with strained smiles and hesitant congratulations. Her father's pat on my back was a bit too forceful, and her mother's eyes darted away too quickly when our gaze met. They were acting, putting on a show of happiness, but their eyes didn't match their expressions. This was not the reaction I expected from the people who should have been overjoyed for their daughter. Their odd behavior only added layers to my unease. Why would they fake their happiness? What was making them hold back? The questions multiplied, swirling in my mind, I tried talking to Dana about it, pointing out how off her parents seemed. They're just surprised, that's all. They'll come around, she said, brushing it off too quickly, too easily. Our friends' reactions stood in stark contrast. They were genuinely thrilled, already diving into planning and celebrations. Their genuine excitement was a relief, but it also made the falseness of her parents' reactions even more stark and troubling. It felt like I was living in two realities. One where our engagement was the best news ever, and another shadowed by hidden truths and half-hearted congratulations. The mixture of reactions left me feeling off balance. I was caught between the joy of our friends and the unsettling response from her parents. It should have been one of the happiest times of our lives, but instead, I found myself looking for clues, for any sign of what was really going on beneath the surface. But then, that day came. A day that seemed no different from any other. I walked through our front door after a long day at work. Only instead of finding Dana in the kitchen or curled up on the sofa with a book as I would on any other day, she was standing by the door, her posture tense, a suitcase at her feet. My heart sank at the sight. "What's going on, Dana?" I asked, my voice steady despite the dread beginning to curl inside me. Dana looked at me, her eyes not holding the warmth I was used to but a somber resolve instead. "Listen, I know this is going to be hard for you," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "But I'm not bisexual. I'm lesbian." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and cold. My parents knew this for 2 years, and this is why they weren't happy and were faking it. "Please, I beg you, do not make this difficult. Just let me leave. Don't cry. Don't beg. And don't scream. Let's just let things go like adults," she continued, her voice growing firmer with each word. I stood there, frozen, as she picked up her bag and walked past me, not once looking back. The front door closed with a click that echoed through the empty apartment. The silence was suffocating. I didn't move, didn't call out to her. I couldn't. The shock pinned me in place, my mind racing yet blank, unable to process the sudden void Dana left in her wake. For what felt like an eternity, I stood there, grappling with a torrent of emotions. Betrayal, confusion, heartache, each one hit me harder than the last. How could the person I loved, the person I was about to marry, keep something like this from me? How could she leave so suddenly, so coldly, as if our years together meant nothing? Dana, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I planned a life with, had vanished, leaving behind a stranger with her face. The realization was brutal, a sharp pain that felt both numbing and searing at the same time. As the minutes ticked by, the initial shock slowly morphed into a profound sense of loss. The future we had envisioned together, our shared dreams and plans, dissolved right before my eyes. 3 months had crawled by since Dana left. During these months, not a single text, call, or knock on the door came. It was as if I had vanished from the lives of those I considered close. Dana had blocked me the very day she left, and her parents, who once welcomed me into their home, didn't bother to reach out. Our friends, mutual and otherwise, remained silent. Their social media posts were filled with praise for Dana, celebrating her bravery and authenticity. Each post was a dagger, reminding me of my own isolation. My health deteriorated rapidly. The stress and emotional turmoil manifested physically. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was hospitalized 3 times in those 3 months. Each visit was a blur of IV drips, sympathetic nurses, and doctors advising me to take it easy, as if my body's betrayal was something I could moderate with a bit of rest. The concern of the hospital staff only highlighted the indifference from those I used to call friends and family. It was a stark, painful contrast to the emptiness of my phone's notifications. Work became my only routine, the only thing that kept me anchored to some semblance of normality. I'd drag myself there in the mornings, the tasks a welcome distraction, but leaving only to return to an empty home, where the quiet was suffocating. Meanwhile, Dana's journey was public, her narrative one of overcoming and authenticity. I couldn't escape it. Every time I logged online, there it was, the story of how she had finally found herself. The world praised her, admired her courage, while I became a ghost in my own life, unseen and unmissed. It wasn't just the breakup that hurt, it was the total abandonment, the erasure of my existence from the lives of those I loved. Right now, the anger seems too heavy to carry, too dense to ignite. I'm just floored by the disbelief, how swiftly my world turned upside down, and how everyone I thought I could lean on simply vanished. I wander through my apartment now. It's all a painful reminder of what was and what can never be again. And it's not just the breakup. It's the total silence from everyone else. Not a single call or message asking if I'm okay. It's as if I ceased to exist, as if my pain is less valid, less important. It's all about her. Her courage. Her journey. Her authenticity. You know what? Pluck them all. They showed their true colors, all right. They're all in awe of her, While I'm shattered here, ignored, like I meant nothing. And pluck my ex for painting this picture, for leaving me stranded in the wake of her self-discovery, without a second thought. I've tried to wrap my head around it, tried to find some sliver of understanding or closure. But there's none. Just this raw, gnawing emptiness where trust and love used to live. I trusted her with my heart, my future. And our friends, I thought they were our friends, but turns out, I was just a +1, easily uninvited when the narrative didn't need me anymore. So yeah, I'm beyond angry. I'm just lost, stripped of my role in my own life story, wondering if I ever really mattered at all. It's a hard pill to swallow, realizing that you might have always been the expendable one. But maybe this is the wake-up call I needed, a brutal shove out of naivety. From here on out, it's about finding my footing again, figuring out who I am when I'm not part of us. But as for them, they can keep their shallow concerns and their superficial celebrations. I'm done. Update. So here we go again, like in GTA San Andreas. But this time is more painful and shocking at the same time, cause today and yesterday night a lot happened. Like some of you folks said, somehow one of my ex-friends saw my post on TikTok and the absolute mess started and is still going on right now. It was late in the evening, just another night of me trying to distract myself with old movies and leftover takeout, when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months, Paul. Seeing his name made my stomach twist. After everything, what could he possibly want? I answered hesitantly. Paul? Hey, he started, his voice awkward, unsure. I saw your post, the one where you mentioned Dana. And man, I didn't know. We didn't know. I tensed, bracing myself for what was coming. It felt like stepping back into a storm I thought had passed. Know what? I managed, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Paul sighed heavily on the other end. Dana told us all a different story, he admitted. She said when she came out to you, you lost it. Tried to hurt her, and then threatened her if she left. She made us promise not to reach out, told us you were dangerous. My breath caught in my throat. The accusations were like a punch to the gut. How could she say those things about me? My confusion and hurt must have been palpable because Paul quickly added. But man, after reading your post, we pressed her on it. She broke down and admitted that she lied about everything. She was scared, she said. Scared of losing us as friends if we knew the truth. The room felt suddenly colder, the shadows deeper. I slumped back against the sofa, the weight of months of isolation and betrayal hitting me all at once. So, you all believed her? Just like that? My voice was barely a whisper, a mix of disbelief and sorrow weaving through the words. Yeah, and I can't tell you how sorry I am. We should have reached out to you. Should have asked your side of things. We screwed up, big time. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of lost time and broken trust. The news that Dana had lied about such serious accusations was both a vindication and a new kind of heartbreak. Why would she do that? And why did everyone just believe her without a second thought about me? Paul's next words pulled me back from the edge of those spiraling thoughts. A bunch of us want to make it right, if you'll let us. As I hung up the phone, the screen dim now, the silence of the apartment felt a little less oppressive. The aftermath of Paul's call was like breaking the dam that had held back months of silence. The days following the revelation were a whirlwind of emotions and decisions. My phone, once a reminder of isolation, was now incessantly active with messages of regret and apologies from friends who had deserted me based on Dana's lies. Among these messages was one from Dana herself, begging for forgiveness and admitting her deceit had been driven by fear of losing her friends. It was a lot to process. The apologies from friends and Dana's confession, each unfolding in the glow of my phone's screen in the dimly lit corners of my once shared apartment. Then came the unexpected message from Mary, Dana's current girlfriend, who was blindsided by the whole situation. Her apology was mixed with confusion and hurt. She had known Dana for a year yet had only heard of me as a roommate. This detail stung sharply. It was disorienting to grasp just how extensively Dana had rewritten our shared past to fit her new narrative. The gravity of the deceit weighed heavily on me, and in a moment fueled by a mixture of hurt and the desire for some control over the chaos, I decided to confront the whole situation head-on. I created a new group chat, including Dana, Mary, Paul, and the rest of my friends who had been misled. The digital room felt charged with tension, a virtual stand-in for the confrontation that needed to happen. In the group, I laid it all out plainly. I'm not changing my mind about forgiving what happened, not yet, I started, the words stark against the backdrop of their previous silence. I've even considered legal action against Dana for defamation, I added, my statement partly true. The idea of suing her had flickered in my thoughts, not fully formed but a reflection of the deep hurt, and the drastic measures I felt pushed towards. I continued. If you all truly cared about me, wouldn't at least one of you have reached out to confirm the story? To ask my side? My words were not just a question but a mirror, reflecting back their own actions, or lack thereof. Then I shared more about Dana that I had kept private, details that painted a fuller picture of the deceit. With each message sent, I felt a small release, a venting of months of pent-up frustration and sadness. After ensuring my peace was heard, I blocked them all. It was a drastic step, but necessary for me to start healing, to cut out the voices that had so easily believed the worst in me. The last few weeks have felt like being stuck in a relentless storm. No matter how many numbers I block, new texts and calls flood in. Friends, or who I thought were friends, are now strangers reaching out through different numbers, their words swinging between apologies and accusations, and even involving people I don't know to pass their messages. It's relentless and exhausting. Every buzz of my phone spikes my anxiety, turning what was once a simple ringtone into a trigger. It's unreal, the extent of this chaos. I keep telling myself this has to be some twisted nightmare, that no one actually lives through this kind of drama. But every new message, every unknown caller ID flashing on my phone screen, drags me back to the harsh reality that this is indeed my life now. It's all true, and there's no waking up from it. Today, I saw a therapist. I sat in a quiet, softly lit room that felt a million miles away from the turmoil of my life. It was supposed to be just about dealing with Dana's betrayal and the fallout with my friends, but it turned into so much more. Once I started talking, old wounds opened up. Wounds I hadn't even admitted were there. The deaths of my parents and my sister, events that I had boxed up and stored deep within, surfaced with overwhelming force. I cried. Not just a few tears, but deep heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for everything that's happened, for everything I lost, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel alone with my pain. The therapist listened, her presence calm and accepting, a stark contrast to the judgment and betrayal I'd become accustomed to. Leaving her office, I felt drained but strangely lighter. It's clear to me now that this is just the beginning of a long journey, a journey to heal not just from the recent betrayals, but also from the grief I've carried for years, buried under layers of daily survival and distraction. I forgot to write this little part, but the quick resume is that I never had a good relationship with Dana's parents, so we never went along well because they always said that I wasn't the right guy for their daughter, so I never cared about them. But this time they asked me to think wisely, and to not sue Dana because she was afraid, and they even justified her actions. That's all, and in fact, I wasn't surprised about their reaction to the news of marrying her. A month has passed since my first post and here I'm again. I know that I promised to be here again when things would be better and I hoped for that very much, but unfortunately my life isn't better at all and things are always going worse than I expected. I'm gonna talk like I talk with my therapist cause a little bit you all are like my therapist, lol. Every session with the therapist peels back layers I didn't even know were there. I entered therapy with the hope, maybe naive, that a few sessions would set me right, that I'd find a way to quickly navigate through the emotional wreckage Dana left behind. But it's turning out to be more complex, more grueling than I'd ever imagined. I find myself sitting in the same soft chair each week, the room always quiet, except for the subtle ticking of the clock and the occasional sounds of the city that drift through the window. These sessions are my safe space, yet they challenge me deeply. As I talk through my days and recount the events that have unfolded, I realize how much I've bottled up, not just recently but over years. Decades even. I've started to cry, a lot. It's not just a tear or two, but a profound, shaking type of crying that comes from a place deep inside. I cry for my parents, who I lost too soon, and my little sister, whose laughter I can still hear if I let the silence linger long enough. I cry for what happened with Dana, how her deception cut so deep, and for my friends, who turned their backs when I needed them the most, treating me like an afterthought, not the person they had known for years. The therapist listens, her notes quiet, her nods encouraging, but the work is mine to do. Each session, each revelation, it feels like I'm trying to climb out of a deep well, the walls damp and mossy, my hands slipping every time I think I've found a new hold. It's frustrating, and sometimes, I leave feeling worse than when I entered. But there's also a glimmer of hope, an understanding that this is a process, and it's supposed to be hard. You're unpacking a lot of buried emotions, she tells me, her voice always steady. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Healing isn't linear. These words have become a mantra for me on the hardest days. I know I'm not an expert at any of this. I can't neatly dissect my feelings or predict how long it will take to feel whole again. It's a journey without a clear map, filled with unexpected turns and setbacks. But I'm learning. About grief, about betrayal, about the strength it takes to rebuild trust, not just in others, but in myself. This isn't the quick fix I hoped for. It's slower, messier, more painful. Yet I cling to the moments of clarity, The small victories when I can talk about my sister without a breakdown, or when I can reflect on Dana's actions without feeling that deep, dark anger. After losing my parents and then my little sister, the world seemed to shrink down to a pinpoint of grief that was almost unbearable. When Dana came into my life, it was like a breath of fresh air sweeping through a long-sealed room. She became my focus, my future, someone to build a new kind of family with, a chance to start over and create a life filled with the happiness and stability I had lost so suddenly. I poured everything into our relationship. Every dinner cooked, every date night planned, every small surprise was a brick in the foundation of the new life I envisioned for us. I wanted her to feel loved, not just ordinarily loved, but deeply cherished. I made sure to listen to her dreams, support her ambitions, and be there whenever she needed someone to lean on. Dana wasn't just my partner. She was my confidant, the one person who really knew every facet of me. My vulnerabilities, my deepest fears, and my hopes. In my heart, Dana filled a space that had been hollowed out by loss. She was my soft spot, the person whose happiness became synonymous with my own. Over the years, this bond only deepened, rooted in countless shared moments and private jokes, the kind that weave two lives inseparably together. But what perhaps wasn't clear in everything I've shared before, is the depth of my commitment to her. Every plan for the future, every dream about what lay ahead included her. When I thought about where I wanted to be in 5, 10, or 20 years, it was always with Dana by my side. She wasn't just part of my life, she was central to every part of my vision for the future. This is why the betrayal cut so deeply, why it felt not just like a personal loss, but like losing a part of myself. When she left, it wasn't just a partner walking out the door. It was as if she took away the very essence of the family I had tried to rebuild. The promise of a new life, a new beginning that had once seemed so bright and certain, crumbled into uncertainty and disillusionment. Now, left in the wake of her departure, I grapple not only with the pain of her betrayal, but with the reality of being alone again, confronted with the echoes of past losses. It's a strange, hollow feeling to realize that the person you trusted with your deepest self, the person you believed would never hurt you, was the one who left the deepest cut. The journey to heal from this isn't just about moving past a broken relationship, it's about reconstructing my sense of trust and understanding what family and love mean to me now. Coming back from the army was like stepping into a different world. After years of structured days, where the stakes were life and death, the transition to civilian life felt disorienting, quiet and mundane. I was carrying more than just my duffel bag home. I had memories and traumas tucked away, the kind that don't just fade with time or can be left at the doorstep. It was during this turbulent phase of readjustment that I met Dana. She entered my life when the echoes of my military service were still loud in my mind, a time when I was trying to find who I was outside of a uniform. She saw past the facade I presented to the world, the decorated veteran with medals and a straight posture. Dana saw the vulnerabilities, the night terrors, the silent moments of reflection that consumed me. And rather than turning away, she stepped closer, choosing to understand and share the burden of my hidden battles. It was love at first sight, not just in the romantic sense but in a profound, life-altering way. Dana represented hope, a beacon in the fog of my transition. Her presence brought a sense of normalcy and peace that had eluded me since my return. I was enchanted, not just by her beauty but by her compassion and unwavering support. So yes, perhaps it was naive, but I believed in the fairy tale she represented. Dana was the one for me, the person who could make the concept of home feel real again, not just a place, but a state of being. In her, I saw the potential to rebuild the family I had lost, to create a future filled with laughter and love, a stark contrast to the solitude and solemnity of my past. That belief in our future was what fueled every decision, every sacrifice. I poured all of my hopes into our relationship, trusting that this was the path to a new beginning, to a life where the shadows of war and loss would be replaced by shared happiness and mutual growth. Each moment with her reinforced this dream, building up an image of what could be if we continued to walk this path together. Reflecting on the past year, I've come to realize that life doesn't always unfold as planned, and sometimes the most painful experiences carry the most profound lessons. Living through the whirlwind of betrayal, abandonment, and the subsequent journey of self-discovery has taught me more than any single moment of happiness ever could. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My ex-wife divorced me after a personality change. I found out I have a brain tumor. How do I move forward? My name is Andrew, 32 years old. In 2022, the chapter closed on a significant part of my life. My marriage. It wasn't just any marriage, it was a journey filled with love, adventure, and an exceptionally deep connection. Reflecting on it, our relationship wasn't merely between two people, it intertwined with entire families, becoming a testament to the love and bonds we shared. My ex-wife's brother and I were so close that I had the honor of being his best man, an experience that highlighted the depth of our intertwined lives. I met Sarah, my ex-wife, 33 years old, during a time of great optimism and hope. We were young and in love, ready to take on the world together. Our relationship blossomed quickly, fueled by late-night conversations and spontaneous adventures. We spent hours exploring the city together, getting lost in its winding streets and hidden treasures. We laughed, we argued, and we discovered new things about each other every day. It was a time of discovery and growth, a period of intense bonding that laid the foundation for what was to come. One of the defining moments of our early relationship was our trip to Belize. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision, fueled by a sense of wanderlust and a desire to experience new cultures together. We found ourselves immersed in the beauty of the Mayan ruins, the ancient stones whispering secrets of a bygone era. It was there, amidst the backdrop of history and romance, that I made the decision to propose to Sarah. Sarah said yes, of course, her eyes sparkling with joy and excitement. In that moment, surrounded by the ancient ruins and the promise of a future together, we felt invincible. We returned home with hearts full of love and dreams of the life we would build together. Looking back on those early days now, it's hard to believe how much has changed. The innocence of our youth has been replaced by the harsh realities of adulthood, and the promise of forever has given way to the harsh reality. Our bond, as beautiful as it was, began to face trials that neither of us could have anticipated. Initially, it was like any other challenge a couple might face, something we believed we could overcome together. Yet as time passed, the hurdles became more daunting, testing our resilience in ways we never imagined. My mental health began to deteriorate, casting long shadows over our lives. What started as subtle changes in my behavior soon spiraled into something far more severe. In public, I was constantly on edge, plagued by an unshakable feeling of being followed. This paranoia escalated to the point where I became convinced our home was bugged, and that police or even government agencies were monitoring me. These weren't fleeting thoughts, they were deeply ingrained beliefs that dictated my actions, leading to a profound sense of fear and isolation. The day my wife, out of sheer desperation and concern, convinced me to go to the emergency room, marked a pivotal moment in our story. There, I received a diagnosis that seemed to offer some answers: a psychotic break, accompanied by bipolar and schizoaffective disorder. This diagnosis was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided a name to the chaos that had taken over our lives, but on the other, it brought a new set of challenges and questions about the future. Despite these difficulties, my wife stood by me, embodying patience and compassion. But as time went on, even with treatment, my behavior didn't stabilize. It was as if the essence of who I had always been was slipping away, replaced by someone we both didn't recognize. This transformation wasn't just internal, it manifested in actions that were out of character for me. I started lying and turned to substance abuse, a stark departure from my previous lifestyle of social drinking and the occasional recreational use of weed. It was a downward spiral, one that seemed to pull me further away from the person I once was and the life we had built together. I knew I was treading on thin ice when I started dabbling with drugs behind my wife's back. But somehow, the thrill of it all seemed to override any rational thought. Stupid, I know. And now, facing the consequences, I can't help but feel like the biggest jerk on the planet. The day she found out was like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface as she stared at me, her eyes narrowing into icy slits. It was a look I never wanted to see directed at me, yet there it was, burning into my soul. She didn't even need to say anything. Her silence spoke volumes, echoing with disappointment, betrayal, and hurt. My stomach churned with guilt as I tried to come up with some feeble excuse, but the words caught in my throat like a noose tightening around my neck. Then came the explosion. The torrent of words, sharp as knives, lashing out at me with a force that left me reeling. She didn't hold back, letting me have it with both barrels. Every lie, every deception, laid bare for all to see. And I couldn't do anything but stand there, taking it all like a punching bag. I watched as tears welled up in her eyes, her voice cracking with emotion as she struggled to make sense of it all. It was like watching someone I loved being torn apart from the inside out, and knowing that I was the one responsible for causing that pain made it all the more unbearable. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to tell her that I was sorry, but the words caught in my throat like a lump of coal. What could I possibly say to make things right again? How could I undo the damage I had done? The silence that followed was deafening, stretching out between us like an unbridgeable chasm. I could feel the weight of her gaze bearing down on me, heavy with disappointment and disbelief. And in that moment, I knew that things would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and still, the rift between us remained. Every attempt at reconciliation seemed to only drive us further apart, like ships passing in the night. I could see the pain etched into her every movement, hear it in the way her voice trembled whenever she spoke to me. I wanted to make things right, to prove to her that I could change, that I could be the man she deserved. But no matter how hard I tried, it never seemed to be enough. The trust that had once bound us together had been shattered beyond repair, leaving nothing but a hollow emptiness in its wake. And so, I found myself trapped in a never-ending cycle of guilt and remorse, haunted by the memory of her tears and the sound of her voice breaking as she uttered those words that cut me to the core. How could I have been so blind, so selfish, to jeopardize everything we had built together? I wish I could turn back the clock, to undo the mistakes of the past and start afresh. But life doesn't work that way, and all I can do now is live with the consequences of my actions. Eventually the strain became too much. The day my wife told me she wanted a divorce was a day I'll never forget. It was a moment filled with a profound sense of loss, not just for the partnership we had, but for the future we had envisioned together. In the aftermath, I tried to maintain some connection with her family, particularly her brother, who had tried to support us both. But over time, even that connection faded, leaving me more isolated than ever. Friends and family gradually distanced themselves, a response to the ongoing turmoil and additional revelations that came to light. In their eyes, and perhaps rightfully so, I had become a pariah. The year that followed was one of deep reflection and struggle. I grappled with the consequences of my actions and the reality of my situation. I checked myself into rehab, determined to reclaim my life and rebuild what I had destroyed. The first few days were the hardest. Detoxing was hell, both physically and mentally. Every fiber of my being screamed for a fix, but I refused to give in. The counselors and therapists at the facility became my lifeline, guiding me through the darkest moments with compassion and understanding. Group therapy sessions forced me to confront the demons I had been running from for so long. I shared my story with strangers who quickly became confidants, realizing that I wasn't alone in my struggles. Together, we leaned on each other for support, finding strength in our shared experiences. As the days turned into weeks, I began to see glimpses of the man I used to be. The man Sarah fell in love with. Clear-headed and focused, I tackled each challenge head-on, determined to emerge from this ordeal a better version of myself. However, things didn't go as smoothly as I had anticipated. Jobs came and went, and I found myself barely scraping by, a stark contrast to the stability I once took for granted. It was a low point, both personally and professionally, one that forced me to confront the changes I needed to make in my life. Amid this turmoil, there were glimmers of hope. I managed to invest in property. Investing in property was a turning point for me. It felt like finally gaining solid ground after years of uncertainty. The process wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted if I could pull it off. But with determination and perseverance, I made it happen. Owning property provided a sense of stability and security that I had longed for. It was a tangible asset, something I could hold on to and build upon. Watching the value of the property grow over time was incredibly satisfying, knowing that I had made a smart investment for my future and for my family. But beyond the financial benefits, owning property gave me a sense of pride and accomplishment. It was a symbol of how far I had come from the depths of addiction, proof that I was capable of building a better life for myself and my loved ones. A new companion, a little pup named Archie, brought a sense of comfort and purpose to my days. Therapy became a beacon of light, offering insights and coping mechanisms that slowly helped me navigate the complexities of my situation. After everything gradually stabilized, I found myself facing unexpected health issues. Headaches became a daily occurrence, a constant throb in the background of my life. Riding the elevator triggered dizzy spells, leaving me disoriented and unsteady on my feet. Concentrating for too long brought on pounding headaches, as if my brain was protesting the effort. Even driving became a challenge, with persistent ringing in my ears adding to the discomfort. At first I brushed off these symptoms as mere inconveniences, attributing them to the stress I had endured and my erratic eating habits. I convinced myself that I was simply feeling weak, a side effect of everything I had been through. But as the days turned into weeks and the symptoms persisted, I began to worry. However, because I was too busy, I did not make an appointment to see a doctor. The revelation came like a thief in the night, unexpected and life-altering. It was during a routine business trip, one of many I'd taken in the recent months as I tried to rebuild the semblance of a normal life, that the world as I knew it came crashing down. One minute I was navigating through the bustling airport, the next I was on the ground, consciousness slipping away like grains of sand through my fingers. Waking up in the hospital was a disorienting experience. The sterile white of the room, the beep of machines monitoring my vitals, and the concerned faces of medical staff hovering over me. It was a stark contrast to the life of constant movement I had been leading. The confusion was palpable, the fear, a silent companion as I tried to piece together what had happened. The journey to diagnosis was fraught with uncertainty. Initial tests were inconclusive, leading to more questions than answers. My medical history, a tapestry of misdiagnoses and treatments for mental health issues, painted a complex picture that puzzled the medical team. Yet it was the insistence of a keen-eyed doctor, who noticed the peculiarities in my symptoms and history, that led to the decisive MRI scan. The scan revealed the unexpected culprit, a brain tumor, nestled in a part of my brain where it had been orchestrating the chaos in my life from the shadows. The moment of revelation was surreal. Sitting in the dimly lit office, the images of my brain displayed on the screen, I listened as the doctor explained the nature of the tumor. It was benign, they believed, but its location had been impacting my behavior and mental health in profound ways. The words brain tumor echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the previous labels I had been given. My initial reaction was one of shock, quickly followed by a flood of relief. For years I had been a prisoner in my own body, my mind a battlefield of paranoia, erratic behavior, and unexplainable emotions. To have an explanation, a tangible cause for the turmoil, was a liberation I hadn't expected. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle had suddenly clicked into place, offering a clarity I had been seeking for so long. My mind wandered to my ex-wife, to the life we had shared, and to the dreams we had for the future. Could the unraveling of our marriage have been avoided if this diagnosis had come sooner? The thought was haunting, a bitter reminder of the fragility of life and the impact of what lies hidden within us. In the immediate aftermath of my diagnosis, a flood of emotions and thoughts besieged me. There was an undeniable urge to share this significant discovery with my ex-wife and her brother, not for the sake of rekindling lost connections but to offer them an explanation, an insight into the chaos that had dismantled the life we once cherished together. Yet, as I dwelled on this impulse, the complexities of such an action became increasingly apparent. The pain, confusion, and upheaval that my behavior had inflicted were not wounds easily healed, and my reemergence, regardless of the intentions behind it, risked reopening scars that had perhaps begun to mend. The bond my ex-wife and I shared was once unbreakable, forged in the fires of shared dreams, laughter, and love. Her brother too was not just a sibling by marriage but a friend, a confidant. The dissolution of our marriage wasn't merely a legal separation, it was the crumbling of a shared existence that had intertwined deeply with our families, friendships, and sense of self. The decision to divorce, while devastating, was a necessary measure she felt compelled to take for her well-being and, painfully, I couldn't dispute her reasons. Our paths had diverged, irrevocably altered by the storm that had swept through our lives. In the wake of the divorce, the silence between us grew, a chasm widened by lost trust and hurtful actions. The initial attempts to maintain a connection, to reach out through messages and emails, soon gave way to the realization that such efforts were met with silence, not out of malice but a need for closure and healing. Mutual friends too, found themselves caught in the aftermath, eventually stepping back as the complexity of our situation made it difficult to navigate the waters of allegiance and support. Yet, the shadow of my past, the what-ifs and the realizations brought about by my diagnosis, lingered. Update. After everything that happened, I decided not to reach out to my ex-wife and her brother. Many suggested I should try to reconnect, offering various methods to ensure the message would reach her. From social media posts designed to indirectly inform her to direct messages delivered through mutual friends, each suggestion was made with good intentions. Yet, despite the appeal of these ideas and my initial inclination to follow through, I've opted for a different path. Social media, for one, doesn't hold the same presence in my life as it does for others. My online footprint is minimal, with an Instagram account for my dog, Archie, and a practically anonymous Facebook profile. The idea of using these platforms to reach out indirectly felt both impractical and somewhat impersonal given the gravity of the situation. But beyond the logistical hurdles lies a deeper consideration. What impact would my reaching out have on my ex-wife? Would it truly be for her benefit, or would it be a selfish act on my part, driven by my own desires and regrets? The more I pondered this, the clearer it became that initiating contact might not be in her best interest. She's a strong, resilient person, and I have no doubt that she's built a fulfilling life for herself since we parted ways. To re-enter her life now, especially with such significant news, could potentially cause unnecessary pain and confusion. This realization forced me to confront my own motivations. A part of me had harbored hopes for reconciliation, for a fairy tale ending where everything was forgiven and we could start anew. However, such fantasies overlook the real and profound reasons for our separation. The issues that led to our divorce weren't just fleeting challenges, they were significant life-altering problems that required more than just a hopeful reunion to resolve. Reflecting on our shared past, I'm filled with a sense of nostalgia and affection. Our relationship was rich with shared experiences and memories, from competitive board games to shared adventures, each moment a testament to the depth of our connection. I cherish those times, from the silly questions we asked each other to the roles we played in each other's lives, including the Dungeons & Dragons campaigns that brought us so much joy. Her presence in my life, her thoughts and her companionship are deeply missed. Yet despite this longing, I understand that moving forward is essential. My recent diagnosis and the revelations that came with it have provided a new perspective on my past actions and the future. It's clear that my journey from here must be one of personal growth and accountability. The upcoming surgery represents not just a step towards physical recovery but also a metaphorical step towards healing and understanding. Alongside my journey to recovery, I've had to come to terms with the fact that my ex-wife has moved on and found a new partner. It wasn't easy to swallow at first, seeing her with someone else, building a life that didn't include me. But I've learned to accept it, to let go of the past and focus on my own healing. I'll admit, there were moments when jealousy and resentment threatened to consume me. I wondered why I wasn't enough, why our marriage had fallen apart. But dwelling on those thoughts only dragged me back into the darkness I've fought so hard to escape. Instead, I chose to focus on the present, on rebuilding myself from the ground up. I poured my energy into my recovery, into finding stability and purpose in my life once again. And slowly but surely, I started to see progress. With each passing day of sobriety, I regained a sense of clarity and strength I thought I had lost forever. I rediscovered hobbies and passions I had long neglected, finding joy in the simple pleasures of life once more. And as I began to heal, I realized that my ex-wife's happiness no longer held power over me. I won't lie and say it was easy. There were moments of doubt and despair, times when I questioned whether I would ever truly be okay. But through it all, I held on to the belief that I was strong enough to overcome anything life threw my way. And you know what? I am. I may not have all the answers, and I may still stumble from time to time, but I'm learning to embrace the journey, to find beauty in the brokenness. So, to my ex-wife, if you ever happen to read this, I want you to know that I'm okay. I've found peace within myself and I hold no ill will towards you or your new partner. I hope you're happy, truly happy, because that's all I ever wanted for you. I never said it before because I didn't want to burden you with my struggles, but I want you to know that I love you. I always have, and I always will. And even though our paths have diverged, I'll always cherish the memories we shared. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future with a newfound sense of hope and optimism. Whether or not I ever fully conquer this disease, I refuse to let it define me. This realization forced me to confront my own motivations. A part of me had harbored hopes for reconciliation, for a fairy tale ending where everything was forgiven and we could start anew. However, such fantasies overlooked the real and profound reasons for our separation. The issues that led to our divorce weren't just fleeting challenges. They were significant, life-altering problems that required more than just a hopeful reunion to resolve. Reflecting on our shared past, I'm filled with a sense of nostalgia and affection. Our relationship was rich with shared experiences and memories, from competitive board games to shared adventures, each moment a testament to the depth of our connection. I cherish those times, from the silly questions we asked each other to the roles we played in each other's lives, including the Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that brought us so much joy. Her presence in my life, her thoughts, and her companionship are deeply missed. Yet despite this longing, I understand that moving forward is essential. My recent diagnosis and the revelations that came with it have provided a new perspective on my past actions and the future. It's clear that my journey from here must be one of personal growth and accountability. The upcoming surgery represents not just a step towards physical recovery but also a metaphorical step towards healing and understanding. Alongside my journey to recovery, I've had to come to terms with the fact that my ex-wife has moved on and found a new partner. It wasn't easy to swallow at first, seeing her with someone else, building a life that didn't include me. But I've learned to accept it, to let go of the past and focus on my own healing. I'll admit, there were moments when jealousy and resentment threatened to consume me. I wondered why I wasn't enough, why our marriage had fallen apart. But dwelling on those thoughts only dragged me back into the darkness I've fought so hard to escape. Instead, I chose to focus on the present, on rebuilding myself from the ground up. I poured my energy into my recovery, into finding stability and purpose in my life once again. And slowly but surely, I started to see progress. With each passing day of sobriety, I regained a sense of clarity and strength I thought I had lost forever. I rediscovered hobbies and passions I had long neglected, finding joy in the simple pleasures of life once more. And as I began to heal, I realized that my ex-wife's happiness no longer held power over me. I won't lie and say it was easy. There were moments of doubt and despair, times when I questioned whether I would ever truly be okay. But through it all, I held on to the belief that I was strong enough to overcome anything life threw my way. And you know what? I am. I may not have all the answers and I may still stumble from time to time, but I'm learning to embrace the journey to find beauty in the brokenness. So, to my ex-wife, if you ever happen to read this, I want you to know that I'm okay. I've found peace within myself, and I hold no ill will towards you or your new partner. I hope you're happy, truly happy, Because that's all I ever wanted for you. I never said it before because I didn't want to burden you with my struggles, but I want you to know that I love you. I always have, and I always will. And even though our paths have diverged, I'll always cherish the memories we shared. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future with a newfound sense of hope and optimism. Whether or not I ever fully conquer this disease, I refuse to let it define me. I choose to live each day to the fullest, to find happiness in the small moments, and to love fiercely, just as I always have. In the meantime, life continues to move at a relentless pace. Job opportunities have arisen, presenting new challenges and decisions, and my recent property purchase adds another layer of complexity to my situation. Each of these developments, while stressful, also brings a sense of purpose and progress. As I navigate this busy period, I find myself feeling optimistic for the first time in years. The prospect of what lies ahead, though uncertain, is invigorating. My focus now is on healing, both physically and emotionally, and on the growth that I hope will follow. The path ahead is unclear, but I'm ready to face it with a renewed sense of hope and determination. My story, with its twists and turns, may not have the resolution that some were hoping for. Yet it's a narrative that's still being written, with lessons learned and more yet to be discovered. For now, I'm content to take things one day at a time, appreciating the progress I've made and the potential for what's yet to come. Despite being insulted by my partner's mother when I spoke up to protect him, I forgave. However, I was devastated when his mother manipulated him and took our wedding savings. I'm Mary, 26, and my boyfriend is Alex, 28 years old. For over 3 years now, I've been in a relationship with my partner. It's been a journey filled with highs and lows, laughter and tears, but through it all, we've remained steadfast by each other's side. He's a kind-hearted soul, gentle and introverted, with a heart of gold. We've built a bond that's rooted in understanding and mutual respect, navigating life's challenges together as a team. However, our journey has not been without its obstacles. One of the biggest challenges we face comes from within Alex's own family, particularly from his mother. She's a complex figure, let's call her Mrs. Smith. From the outside, Mrs. Smith may seem like a typical mother figure, but behind closed doors, her behavior tells a different story. Mrs. Smith exhibits emotionally abusive tendencies towards Alex. She belittles him, criticizes his every move, and manipulates him to fulfill her own needs. It's a pattern of behavior that has persisted for years, casting a shadow over their relationship and leaving Alex feeling trapped and powerless. As I've witnessed the dynamics between Alex and his mother unfold, it's become increasingly clear to me the toll that this emotional abuse takes on him. The constant barrage of negativity chips away at his self-esteem, leaving him feeling unworthy and inadequate. Yet, despite the pain it causes him, Alex yearns for his mother's love and approval, desperately seeking validation from a source that seems incapable of providing it. Mrs. Smith's troubled background serves as a backdrop to her emotionally abusive behavior towards Alex. 3 years ago, she went through a divorce that left her emotionally shattered. The dissolution of her marriage triggered a downward spiral in her mental state, exacerbating her already fragile emotional state. Unable to cope with the upheaval, Mrs. Smith's demeanor shifted, and she became increasingly bitter and resentful. Since the divorce, Mrs. Smith's daily routine has been marked by a sense of aimlessness and despair. She lacks motivation to engage in meaningful activities, often spending her days in isolation. Neglecting household chores and responsibilities, she allows the burden to fall on Alex and other family members. Her lack of contribution to the household only adds to the tension and resentment brewing within the family dynamic. In her interactions with Alex, Mrs. Smith's behavior takes on a toxic edge. She frequently belittles him, using cutting remarks to undermine his confidence and self-worth. Every accomplishment is met with criticism, every mistake magnified and exploited. Her words are like daggers, piercing through Alex's defenses and leaving him emotionally wounded. Yelling has become a common occurrence in their household, with Mrs. Smith unleashing her frustrations on Alex without restraint. Her anger knows no bounds, and she lashes out at him over the smallest of perceived slights. The verbal assaults leave Alex feeling small and powerless, trapped in a cycle of emotional abuse from which he sees no escape. Manipulation is another weapon in Mrs. Smith's arsenal, used to control and coerce Alex into meeting her needs. She plays on his guilt and sense of obligation, exploiting his desire to please her at any cost. Whether it's guilt-tripping him into running errands or emotionally blackmailing him into compliance, Mrs. Smith's manipulative tactics further entrench her power over Alex, leaving him feeling trapped and helpless. As the girlfriend of Alex, I've witnessed firsthand the profound impact of his mother's emotionally abusive behavior on him. Alex is a gentle and kind-hearted soul, but beneath his calm exterior lies a sea of emotional turmoil, wrought by years of enduring his mother's toxic treatment. The constant barrage of criticism, belittlement, and manipulation from his mother leaves him in a perpetual state of unease and distress. His anxiety manifests in various ways, from racing thoughts and difficulty concentrating to physical symptoms like chest tightness and shortness of breath. These symptoms often escalate into full-blown panic attacks, rendering him immobilized and overwhelmed by fear. Her constant criticism and manipulation chip away at his self-esteem, leaving him feeling unworthy and unlovable. He internalizes her harsh words and begins to question his own worth, doubting whether he's deserving of love and respect. Alex's mother's behavior takes a toll on his mental health, exacerbating his anxiety and depression and leaving him feeling overwhelmed and helpless. Her relentless negativity creates a toxic atmosphere in their household, making it difficult for Alex to find peace and solace in his own home. He feels like he's constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to set off his mother's anger or disappointment. Despite the pain and anguish caused by his mother's behavior, Alex continues to yearn for her love and approval, desperately seeking validation from a source that seems incapable of providing it. His desire for his mother's affection is a double-edged sword, as it leaves him vulnerable to her manipulation and control. He fears confronting her and standing up for himself, worried about the repercussions and potential backlash. I've found myself grappling with the heartbreaking reality of his situation when it comes to seeking refuge from his mother's toxic behavior. It's a question that weighs heavily on both of our minds. Can he come stay with his dad? The answer, unfortunately, is not as simple as we had hoped. Despite the desire to find sanctuary in his father's home, Alex's dad lives in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, unable to accommodate him. However, even in the face of this obstacle, there's a glimmer of hope in knowing that his father would do anything to support him. Alex's father would be willing to make the sacrifice of moving into a larger space to provide his son with the comfort and safety he so desperately needs. Yet, despite his father's potential willingness to make such a sacrifice, Alex remains paralyzed by fear at the mere thought of confronting his mother or seeking refuge elsewhere. The terror he feels towards his mother's wrath is a powerful deterrent, holding him back from taking steps towards asserting his own autonomy and seeking a better life for himself. It's a heartbreaking reality that we're both faced with, knowing that we're working tirelessly to move out and create a safe haven away from the toxicity of Alex's home environment. However, as anyone who's tried to navigate the daunting landscape of housing affordability knows, it's an uphill battle filled with financial constraints and limited options. Especially during one particularly tense visit home, I found myself unable to stay silent any longer in the face of Alex's mother's relentless barrage of criticism towards him. Fueled by anger and frustration, I couldn't help but speak up and argue back when she unleashed her harsh words upon him. I couldn't bear to see him being torn down yet again without standing up for himself. In the heat of the moment, my emotions got the best of me, and I even directed some of my frustration towards Alex, expressing my frustration at what I perceived as his weakness in standing up to his mother's abuse. I knew that if we continued to allow her toxic behavior to go unchecked, it would only serve to poison our future together. However, instead of diffusing the tension, my outburst only seemed to escalate the situation further. Alex's mother turned her fury towards him, accusing him of choosing me over her and demanding that he make a choice between us. It was a heartbreaking ultimatum to witness, knowing that Alex was caught between his loyalty to his mother and his love for me. As if that weren't enough, she didn't hesitate to hurl insults my way, mocking me for my perceived lack of education. Her words stung. Anger, frustration, and sadness coursed through me as I struggled to process what had just transpired. Unable to contain my feelings any longer, tears welled up in my eyes, threatening to spill over at any moment. I made the decision to leave. I couldn't bear to stay in that toxic environment a moment longer, surrounded by negativity and hostility. I hoped that Alex would come after me, that he would show some sign of defiance against his mother's control and choose to stand by my side. But as I walked away, my heart sank with the realization that he remained rooted in place, paralyzed by fear of his mother's wrath. He remained a prisoner of his own fears, unable to defy the hold that his mother had over him. In the aftermath of the heated confrontation and my subsequent departure, I was left grappling with a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Anger, hurt and disappointment vied for dominance within me. But amidst it all, one undeniable truth remained. I loved Alex. Despite the pain he had caused me, I couldn't shake the deep-rooted affection I felt for him. A week passed, and despite my initial resolve to stand firm in my decision, I found myself unable to resist the pull of love and compassion. I couldn't bear to see Alex suffer alone, trapped in the suffocating grip of his mother's manipulation. So, against my better judgment, I forgave him. I rationalized my decision by telling myself that love was worth fighting for, that I couldn't abandon him in his time of need. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. I made it clear to Alex that while I was willing to give him another chance, I wouldn't subject myself to further abuse at the hands of his mother. From that point on, we chose to meet outside of his mother's house, avoiding the toxic environment that had caused us so much pain. However, just when I thought we were making progress, another blow came crashing down. Alex made the shocking decision to take the money we had been saving for our future together and hand it over to his mother. It was a devastating betrayal, one that cut me to the core. The realization that Alex had succumbed once again to his mother's manipulation was like a dagger to my heart. I felt a wave of despair wash over me, wondering how I could have been so blind to the extent of Mrs. Smith's control over him. The money we had saved was meant to be a symbol of our commitment to each other, a tangible reminder of our dreams for the future. To see it squandered away on his mother's whims felt like a betrayal of everything we had worked so hard for. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of helplessness and despair. It was clear that Mrs. Smith's psychological manipulation knew no bounds, and I realized with a sinking feeling that I was powerless to stop it. Despite my love for Alex, I couldn't ignore the harsh reality of our situation. And while my heart ached at the thought of walking away, I knew that I couldn't continue to sacrifice my own well-being for the sake of a relationship that was built on a foundation of manipulation and deceit. So he and I broke up. 1 month later, I received a distressing call from Alex. His voice trembled with despair as he confessed that he felt utterly worthless, consumed by thoughts of despair and hopelessness. My heart broke for him as he revealed that his mother had callously betrayed him, taking all the money he had given her and running away with another man. In that moment, it became painfully clear that he needed me more than ever before. Driven by love and compassion, I made the decision to return to his side, determined to offer him the support and comfort he so desperately needed. Together, we embarked on a journey of healing, attending regular therapy sessions at the hospital to address his mental health struggles. Despite the challenges we faced, I remained steadfast in my commitment to him, serving as his rock and source of encouragement during his darkest moments. I took it upon myself to create a sense of hope and optimism for our future, painting a vivid picture of the beautiful life that awaited us once he emerged from the shadows of his past. Slowly but surely, his spirit began to stabilize, and the light of hope flickered once again in his eyes. In the midst of our shared struggles, our bond only grew stronger, forged in the fires of adversity and strengthened by our unwavering love for each other. It was during this time of turmoil and transformation that we made the decision to take the next step in our journey together. We decided to get married. Filled with a renewed sense of purpose and determination, we embarked on the exciting journey of planning our future together, eager to leave the pain and heartache of the past behind us. With each passing day, our love continued to blossom, a beacon of light guiding us towards a brighter tomorrow. And as we stood hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew in my heart that together, we could conquer anything that came our way. Now, after being married for 10 months, I find myself pregnant with our son, a new chapter of joy and anticipation unfolding before us. However, just as we began to revel in the happiness of impending parenthood, the specter of Alex's estranged mother reappeared, casting a shadow of uncertainty over our lives once again. With tearful pleas and desperate appeals, she sought to worm her way back into our lives, leaving me feeling torn and uncertain about what course of action to take. In the midst of this turmoil, I find myself grappling with conflicting emotions. As the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on my mind, I felt compelled to speak up, to plead with my husband to reconsider the idea of letting his estranged mother back into our lives. The thought of subjecting our unborn child to the same pain and turmoil that Alex had endured in the past filled me with an overwhelming sense of dread and urgency. In a quiet moment together, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the difficult conversation that lay ahead. With a heavy heart and trembling voice, I began to express my deepest fears and concerns to my husband, laying bare the raw emotions that churned within me. Alex, I started, my voice wavering slightly, I know that your mother's sudden reappearance has stirred up a whirlwind of conflicting emotions within you. But please, I beg of you, consider the implications of allowing her back into our lives. I reached out, grasping his hand tightly in mine, seeking solace and support in his reassuring presence. Think about what she did to you in the past, I continued, my voice trembling with emotion. Do you really want to expose our child to the same kind of toxicity and negativity that you endured? Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke, my heart aching with the weight of my words. I don't want our child to grow up in an environment filled with pain and resentment, I pleaded, desperation lacing my words. We deserve better, Alex. Our child deserves better. I searched his eyes, silently pleading for him to understand the depth of my fears and concerns. But as I gazed into his eyes, I saw the conflict raging within him, the turmoil of emotions that mirrored my own. For a long moment, there was silence between us, punctuated only by the soft sound of our breathing. And then, with a heavy sigh, Alex spoke, his voice tinged with uncertainty and hesitation. "I understand your concerns, Sarah," he said softly, his gaze dropping to the floor. "But she's still my mother. And despite everything that's happened, I can't shake off the feeling that I owe her another chance." My heart sank at his words, a sense of resignation settling over me like a heavy blanket. I knew that trying to convince him otherwise would be futile, that his sense of duty and obligation to his mother ran deep. Frustration and anger consumed me as I stormed out of our home, my swollen belly a heavy burden against my frame. Blocking my husband's calls, I sought solace in the company of my best friend, pouring out my grievances in a torrent of tears and frustration. Days turned into weeks, my mood swinging wildly between anger and despair as I struggled to find stability amidst the chaos. Then, one fateful day, a sharp pain tore through my abdomen, sending me doubling over in agony. Fear gripped my heart as my best friend rushed me to the hospital, the urgency of the situation propelling us forward with a sense of urgency. In the sterile confines of the hospital room, the truth of our predicament hit me like a sledgehammer. My baby just turned 8 months old, fought for life within the confines of my womb, his premature arrival a stark reminder of the fragility of life. As doctors and nurses bustled around me, their urgent voices a cacophony of chaos, I clung to a sliver of hope, praying fervently for the safety of my unborn child. Time seemed to stand still as I waited with bated breath, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket. Then, with a cry that pierced the air like a beacon of hope, my son was born. Fragile and vulnerable, he lay cradled in the arms of the medical staff, his tiny form a testament to the miracle of life amidst adversity. In that moment, as I gazed upon the tiny bundle of joy nestled against my chest, a wave of overwhelming love washed over me, drowning out the chaos and uncertainty that had plagued me for so long. Despite the challenges that lay ahead, I knew that I would do whatever it took to protect and nurture this precious gift, my son, my reason for hope in a world fraught with uncertainty. As my husband rushed to my side, his face a mixture of worry and relief, I felt a surge of emotions wash over me. In his arms, I found solace and strength. His presence a reassuring anchor amidst the tumultuous sea of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. His embrace was a testament to the love and support that had sustained us through the darkest of times, his warm touch a balm to my weary soul. In that moment, as we held each other close, I knew that together we could weather any storm that life threw our way. With tears of joy streaming down our faces, we marveled at the tiny miracle cradled in my arms, his delicate features a poignant reminder of the preciousness of life. In his innocent gaze, I saw hope and promise for the future, a beacon of light in the darkness that had threatened to engulf us. Update. After a long and difficult conversation, my husband and I made the tough decision to place my mother-in-law in a nursing home. It wasn't an easy choice, but we knew it was necessary for her well-being and our own peace of mind. However, shortly after she was admitted, we received news that she had fled from the facility. Learning that she had run away once again filled me with a sense of dread and anxiety. Despite our best efforts to provide her with the care she needed, it seemed that she was determined to resist any form of confinement. Her refusal to stay in the nursing home left us feeling helpless and uncertain about what to do next. As I shared these concerns with my husband, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom that hung over us. The thought of her returning and causing havoc once more weighed heavily on my mind, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over our lives. Despite our attempts to move forward and create a sense of stability for our family, the specter of my mother-in-law's actions continued to haunt us, a constant reminder of the challenges we faced in caring for her and protecting our own well-being. In the midst of this uncertainty, I found myself grappling with conflicting emotions, torn between my sense of duty towards my husband's mother and the need to prioritize the safety and happiness of our own family. It was a difficult balancing act, one that left me feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. As we navigated this new chapter in our lives, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held in store for us. Would my mother-in-law return, disrupting our lives once again? Or would we finally find a sense of peace and stability, free from the turmoil that had plagued us for so long? Only time would tell, but for now, all we could do was wait and hope for the best, clinging to the belief that somehow, we would find a way to overcome whatever challenges lay ahead.